All right, pediatric chiropractors, actually all chiropractors, you're going to get a kick out of this one. You're going to get frustrated by this one. And if you get all the way through this one, you're going to get a whole lot better at the one thing we bring to the world that no one else can. Adjusting. It is truly the art of the adjustment that transforms a child's life, a patient's life. It is truly understanding the neurological potential that you hold literally within your hands, which actually begins with understanding the detriment, the significant, serious, intricate detriment that subluxation is, especially in a child's life. So let's start this one off with where I learned this principle of the difference between a good adjuster and a great adjuster. And then I'm going to kind of push us. I'm going to take us to a legendary, wildly impactful, take on the toughest cases with ease and confidence legendary adjuster. All right. So if you've been to any seminar, any training, or anything with me that has much to do about chiropractic, especially if I'm teaching adjusting, like we do at our neurotonal certificate program with Life University, CEs, all that sort of stuff. We do a live 2-day all out. Kids come in, get adjusted. It's the greatest pediatric adjusting seminar out there. You've heard me in those places, and you talk about this name, Dr. Cody, Dr. Mike Cody. Now, Dr. Cody is my mentor. He is no longer with us. God bless Dr. Cody. I hope he's, where I'm making this video during the NFL playoffs. Huge Chiefs fan. Go Chiefs, go. I hope the Vikings and the Chiefs end up in the playoffs. Crazy, right? But Dr. Cody will be sitting next to me in spirit, cheering against my team. Anyways, Dr. Cody was an absolute legendary wizard adjuster. And during my internship, where I first met Dr. Cody, of course, all you want to know is exactly the details of every adjustment. What was the palpation? What was the check? What'd you do? Where'd you find it? How'd you do it? Right? And you want a very academic, school-based answer to every one of your questions. Because when you're on your internship, you are literally just, right? You're totally in that school brain where everything has to be linear and everything has to be logical and everything has to be A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D. Give it to me, show it to me, and then I'll memorize it. And then I do that, right? And I'll regurgitate it for a career. Well, the best mentors get you out of that school brain and they get you into your most effective brain, the one where you're actually thinking instead of just, right, following a flow chart. And so when I asked the question again and again and again of Dr. Cody, when I would watch him make an adjustment that I couldn't make sense of, I knew the different techniques and clinical systems that he really merged together. That's actually, really take that as your first tip. That is the most important tip I can give you about adjusting. You need a multitude of techniques to be a legendary adjuster. You cannot limit yourself to just one. It is amazing when you master one technique and you are a master of that technique. I am not putting that down. I am putting up. What if you master multiple techniques? That's a true wizard of a chiropractor, all right? And Dr. Cody was that. So when I would watch him adjust, he was definitely a mixer of techniques. And so therefore, as a young green student, I couldn't always figure out certain adjustments. And it tended to be the toughest cases. Like if a kid was in there, he saw a ton of kids, obviously his mentor of mine, that was my path. And if a kid come in and was really struggling, he would make these, I don't even know what else to tell you, other than like funky, seemingly pulled him out of you-know-where sort of adjustments. And when we would get a break in between patients or at the end of the shift or lunch or whatever, I'd say, hey, Dr. Cody, this adjustment back then, can you take me through why you made that adjustment? And he pulled me aside one day and he said, Tony, do you know the difference between a good adjuster and a great adjuster? And his answer was this, and I'm going to answer with his, and then I'm going to answer with mine that I've kind of grown into over the years. He said the difference between a good adjuster and a great adjuster is when you ask that question to a good adjuster, they can give you an exact linear answer. They pull up the x-ray or they look at the legs, the leg checks, the palpation, the scope, whatever it is, the very technical answer will get you to a very technically sound, good adjustment. And that is a great place to start as a student. You want to be a technically sound adjuster where you have sound reasoning, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Here's how I arrived at that subluxation. Here's why I made that adjustment. But he said, if you ask a great adjuster, why'd you make that adjustment? Their answer is this, because it needed it. Now that one, here's where you're going to laugh, I hope, with me, right? And then you laugh and it's like a nervous laugh because it's like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense because, it's just chiropractic. It's intuition and their nervous system and our nervous system, and it's a dance. And we've all heard these things, especially by the most masterful adjusters. And we love that. We get all excited. We're like, oh yeah, man, that's chiropractic. That's the power of the adjustment. And then you're in the moment and you're all fired up and you're like, this is awesome. And then 5 minutes later, when you're trying to figure out how you could actually become a masterful wizard adjuster, you're like, shit. That doesn't help me at all. There is no system to that. There is no structure to that. How do I be about that? Just show up, hope and pray for the best, and the mastery will come out of one day, just sprinkled down from above, and now I'm a great adjuster? Somewhat. Reps help. Here's how I've carried that forward from what Dr. Cody taught me to this. How do we actually take the good and the great and turn it into a system and be able to answer that question even for the newest of chiropractic adjusters? And the truth is, the answer is both. Both. If you're on Instagram right now, that's come on. BOAF. Just kidding. BOTH. I always reference it as the Deion Sanders and the Bo Jackson answer. Both is the answer. The way we adjust and the way we teach others to adjust is we absolutely have a structure. We absolutely have a flow chart. We absolutely have our neurotonal checks. We're assessing the nervous system, the autonomic and the central nervous system in a certain sequence and a certain system. And we're assessing the patient, and we're assessing for those subluxations within that tonal approach and understanding how to systemize that and be reproducible and repeatable with efficacy every single adjustment. And then also told you to stay through the end of this one. This is where it gets good. Honoring at all times our intuition and our present time consciousness, and knowing that if we truly want to be a not just good and not just great, but a legendary wizardry sort of adjuster, we need to tune out all the noise and all the distraction. And we need to be ultimately entirely present with our patients. And our nervous system needs to be tapped into their nervous system. And the coolest thing about intuition and the coolest thing about this is, especially as a neurologically focused chiropractor, you can actually understand two things about intuition. It's not just woo-woo, it's not just airy-fairy, and it's not just made up. It is absolutely something that is scientific and is absolutely something you can put into a system. See, what our brains have is an incredible predictive neurology component. There's an expectation effect or a modeling that our nervous system can literally, our brain is many miles, many thoughts, many structures ahead of where our conscious understanding is in that moment. Use that speed, use that brilliance of your brain. That's actually what intuition is. If you are tapped in, if you are literally in the moment, you are present, you can simultaneously use your educated brain, you can use the 5-step neurotonal framework like we teach our students and teach our doctors, and you can be going through the motions. Those are important motions. You want to have that system and the structure, and at the same time, riding in equal and in scientific neurological importance is your intuition and your perception. And when you use both, a system and a structure for unbelievable neurotonal scientific-based adjusting, and are tapped into your intuition and your present time consciousness and your neurological perception of the subluxation and the choice. What is the best adjustment? What is the primary? What is the major? And what is the best technique approach I need to use right now, this moment, this subluxation, this patient, this second? And you do that every time, every subluxation, every patient, every visit, every time for your entire career. You are a legendary wizardry adjuster. Share this video, please. One thing we're going to do through the pediatric experience is we're not only going to level up the certainty of our chiropractors and their communication and their ability to brand and market and get the message out there, but we are unbelievably committed to, most importantly, leveling up the craft, leveling up the clinical results that we all get when adjusting kids. They're not just little spines. They're not just little nervous systems. These things you learned right here, how to be a ridiculously legendary adjuster through the story and then the structure and the construct we bring about, how to bring those two things together, your system and your intuition. Share this, send this, tag somebody in this video, get it out there to as many of our chiropractic brothers and sisters as possible, and especially get it to students and startups. Because if you have the blessing like I had from Dr. Cody, he taught me how to use these both at the same time. I don't even think he knew he was doing both, a system and an intuition, but he certainly was, and he certainly taught it to me. Now I'm conscious of the fact that it takes both, and I use it, and we teach it, and I want you to share it as well. Thank you so much for watching this one. Level it up, get after it, use both, go be legendary.